So the southwest monsoons have finally hit the subcontinent. The summer monsoons are here, and it's a relief from the heat that we all were facing. It was record-breaking heat wave in different parts of the country. We all were struggling, and we all have faced, the summer days. And in that, the showers, the rainfall are nothing but blessings. We romanticize these showers of blessings with hot cup of tea and then Sunday pakoras in the evening. But then there comes a time when it's heavy rainfall and we are living in a city, and when you have to go out in the morning and go to work, but it's still heavily pouring, and then the roads are flooded. There is water everywhere because the drains are clogged. It is because the authorities who are responsible of maintaining the drainage system, who are responsible of preparing the city for before the monsoon season, are not doing their job. There is desiltation, the drains are not properly cleaned, which is why the water is not drained at particular period of time. There is heavy flooding in different parts of the country, even the cities. Various settlements in the low-lying areas, they get submerged, and it causes a lot of issues to the population, to the people of even the metro cities like Mumbai and Delhi and Chennai. So we are not even, if we just ignore the two-tier cities or smaller towns, even the metros face this problem, which is quite a sad thing, because we spend a lot of money, taxpayers' money go into development, and the taxpayers' money go into maintaining these cities. And as an archaeologist, when I look at these issues, of course, my mind goes to the ancient cities, and I wonder, because the phenomenon of city is a historical phenomenon. His cities did not come up in just few hundred years. Their first cities were built about 6,000 years ago. So the cities as a phenomenon is not a new thing. It's not a new age thing. Of course, the concepts have changed a bit. The structures have changed a bit. We are, instead of going horizontally, we are expanding vertically. Their technology has changed, but the concept of city has remained the same, right? And we, in the Indian subcontinent, we saw the rise of the first cities, and everything, all these problems actually start with the structure of the city. And although our authorities are ignorant to the fact, but the answer to these problems may lie in archaeology, may lie in our history textbooks, may lie in our ancient literature, and perhaps it's time to give all of them a glimpse of how our ancient societies really managed rainwater, how they harvested rainwater, how they managed their draining system, and how actually they managed the hydraulic system, and also managed tanks, canals, dams, etc. And in this, we will first deal with the question of what is city. Now, Aristotle has said that city is an amalgamation of small villages, and these villages come together into a united city state, and these city states are have dense population, and then they are self-sufficient. And also, these cities initially came up as a means of survival, but then they kept on continued existing only and only because of the comfortable lifestyle and nothing else. And which is quite fascinating, because if you look at the historicity of the rise of cities, it's actually true. The first cities rose on the foundation laid by the early farming settlement. So it was about 8,000 BCE when early farming settlements started to come up on river banks. So they are there are two parts. There's one city, and then there's another part which is the river system. See, all of this sort of intertwine, and the answer to the question that we have asked, in the beginning, well, it lies in when we look at these two elements separately and then we combine them. So cities, if you look at it, the early settlements, which is the early farming settlements, they was these early settlers, early farmers, they placed the settlements on the riverbank or on the lake or on any other water body, and the reason was simple, because water is a source of livelihood, water is also a source of subsistence, water is needed for a farming community for irrigation. So naturally, these settlements were around, in and around, and very close to a water source. And the initial settlements, the early settlements, which are quite well dated early in antiquity, are on various river banks, be it on Indus, which is Mehergarh, which falls in the Indus river system. We have Birana on the Saraswati river system, and on the east we have Loharadeva, which is which is bounded by Sarayu river, but it's adjacent to a lake, which is Loharadeva Lake. So you have these settlements coming up, and slowly and steadily these early farming settlements, they grew in size. And when farming became an important part of subsistence and was successfully replaced the early the hunting, foraging, and gathering aspect of subsistence, the sedentary life facilitated into rise of craft, other and caused so a complex society. Also religion came up, the belief, and all of the together, when there was surplus, because now there was a lot of time in the hands of humans, since farming was the early humans new hobby. They had a lot of time eventually, because there was a certain sector of the community now dedicated to farming. The other could then take the surplus and start trading. So the trading process starts. Eventually, there comes a point in Neolithic phase where pottery becomes part of the subsistence and also the livelihood. With pottery, you can now store, you can cook, and you can do a lot of things with the grains, and you can do a lot of things with other aspects. Also, the terracotta art, the pyro technique were also became more and more complex and sophisticated. Eventually, with trade, because now there is surplus and you cannot trade the surplus, it also gave rise to art and other various skills, the strategic skills for subsistence. It gave rise to economic prosperity, and with that, trade was initiated. Not initially, it perhaps must have been with the local communities and inland, and then with that, once there is sophistication in craft and manufacturing of various kinds of goods, these goods could be taken to different parts of the globe, ancient world, and then traded there. Eventually, with prosperity, there was a need to concentrate wealth and also people in one area, with possibly within the bounds of a fortified settlement, and to have these people, since society is now stratified in different economic, in different occupations. There are potters, there are smiths, blacksmiths. There are different occupation, people of different occupation living in one city now. So there was a concentration of people. Therefore, these villages which were spread around, they came together and they got concentrated in one area. This is true in the case of various Harappan cities such as Rakhigadi. We see that the early Harappan Rakhigadi, which is the early farming phase, was spread in large area, because naturally you need more land to do farming, so your settlements are spread at a distance. But once you become a metropolis, a city, people, they live in a concentrated area, and therefore we see, early Harappan settlements being abandoned, and there is a concentration population in one area, a large area, but in one area during mature Harappan period. Similar was the case with Kalibangan. Similar is the case with Harappa and Mohenjo-daro as well as Dholavira. So the cities are quite an interesting aspect. So when you have concentrated people in one area, dense population in one area, people who are undertaking different work in one area, you need to understand and need to take care of basic things such as the drainage. You need to take care of sanitation. You need to provide water for the people to survive, for the basic needs. And since you have now urban cities, which there for urbanization there are different parameters. So since you have urban cities, you do need to have water, and then you need to manage the waste as well. So to do that, one of the markers of Harappan's civilization during the urban phase, the mature Harappan phase, was the drainage system. Now, their drains were quite big in case of Dholavira and some drains in Mohenjo-daro, but they had drains, covered drains and uncovered drains. Mostly the drains were underground. In most of the cities, the same phenomenon. These drains were made of baked bricks, and they were on the street and not within the complex. They were outlying these habitational areas, and they would connect with each other with various channels for the outlet, and also there will be a lot of soak pits. So in the case of Banavali, and also in Rakhigarhi, archaeologists have found that drains were connected with socket jars. Now, socket jars are there where the waste could be collected, the large particles could be collected, and the water would be drained out, and there is sort of a filtration of waste that happens on the way. And periodically, these jars have been emptied and at times replaced as well. In the case of Mohenjo-daro too, there were channels, there were chutes which would help in managing the waste and also help in channeling the fresh water from the tanks to various house complexes. In fact, even in the Great Bath. So you see this complex, science. The hydraulic science has been used by early Harappans. In fact, Mohenjo-daro has a large number of wells in the settlement, which indicate that people needed water and they were maintaining this water system. One of the startling examples of water system actually comes from the site of Dholavira, which was recently inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This site actually is an example, the exact example which our authorities need of how to manage cities and how to do rainwater harvesting, which is the need of the hour, how to channelize water, how to revive water, how to use water in a zone, in an ecology where water is scarce. Now, Dholavira is in Kutch, little run of Kutch. It's an arid area. There is not much rainfall. Even if there is, it's seasonal. There are two seasonal streams, Manhar and Mansar, which connects when the Harappan city at Dholavira was coming up, the people, they built reservoirs around the city. Dr. Bisht, who is the excavator of Dholavira, says that there are 16 reservoirs, but he has only excavated 6 out of them. So these big rock cut reservoirs were excavated. So the face of the rock were excavated, and they built huge reservoirs which were outlining the city, and these reservoirs were then connected with these two streams, so to reserve water in them in the need of the hour. These reservoirs were then also connected to various drains and various tanks within the city, different parts of the city. Like you have Citadel and Bailey. From there's a particular reservoir which is connected through drainage, and then even the lower town, upper town. Also, there were drainage which were connected to reservoirs. So water was going in the city and then coming out. probably the rainwater was going in this reservoirs through storm drains which were excavated during the which were excavated back when the site was under investigation. These storm drains were meant to harvest water. So during the seasonal rainfall, the water would go into these huge, life size, like a 5 feet tall human can actually walk in these drains. These drains were connected to reservoirs, so wherever there is rainfall from the city, the water will not get clog any house or any courtyard or the streets. The water will go into the reservoir, and there the water will be stored. So, and also there were, of course, the wells and the tanks also, which were all interconnected. This beautiful, this connected, this technique of harvesting water, this whole system of drainage and rainwater harvesting, and also managing water in an area where water is scarce, is quite it's something that we all should learn from the Dholavira side, and also should take as an example, because that's the need of the hour. We need to understand how the ecology works, and cannot apply the same model in different parts of the country, because our country is very ecologically diverse. So you can't have the same subsistence pattern which is used in North India, in the West, and similarly in Southern India. You can't use that, and that is what ancient people knew. They knew how to manage things in their own zone, and what to do when there is a disaster. There's a reason why there is, vernacular architecture, different architecture styles in different part of the country, which now is lost and replaced by these skyscrapers. And we all are not just victims, but we also are responsible for this. Now there's another aspect to this whole thing. When these cities were rising from the ashes of early farming settlements, these settlements were on the riverbank. And then when these cities were being built on the riverbank, the people who were building it, and especially the people who were living in it, were aware of the seasonal floods. They knew what is the floodplain, how wide is the floodplain of the river. Now, most of us in living in cities where the rivers are adjacent to our cities have actually converted our rivers into nala. The ancient river of Yamuna, which is quite an ancient old river, is now a nala. I remember seeing an era which was quite wider, but today you have encroachment in the floodplain. You have Commonwealth village there. You have even the Akshardham temple on the floodplain. You have various settlements on the floodplain. There are colonies on floodplain now, and the river is now restricted, is captured, is become a nala, because there is a dam, so you can maintain the river flow. But then when there is heavy flood, this river overflows and takes over your entire city. Here where I am living in Baroda, there is a river called Vishwamitri, and it used to flow right behind the MSU department, the university. And today, the area where the river used to flow, there is roads. There is a place called Sayaji Ganj. There is Kalagoda Circle, which is a low-lying area. So whenever there is rainfall, heavy rainfall, even if it's for 20 minutes rainfall, it gets flooded. Just the other day, I was stepping out of the university and I was knee-deep in water, and it was mayhem. And this is happening because we have converted an old river, an important river, which would have been wide, not as wide as other glacier fed rivers, but would have been wide enough, but we have converted it into a nala. And then we complain that the crocodiles are spotted in the city, but then we are the ones who have captured the floodplain, we are the ones who have captured the terraces. And same is the case with Delhi. So if there is heavy rainfall in Delhi, and just behind the Red Fort there is a road which connects to ISBT, and if that road gets flooded, which it does, people start crying, people start complaining. But then you can't complain because that was the ancient course of river Yamuna. There, that is where it was the dry bed of Yamuna. The Yamuna got shrunk, and rivers have its seasons. Rivers shrink and then they expand. It all depends on the source of the river water. It all depends on monsoonal cycle. That's something that the ancient societies knew. They knew not to encroach the floodplains. Harappan settlements never did that. None of the ancient settlements did that till a considerable period of time. That phenomenon did not exist. So when you have a big road, a ring road on the dry bed of Yamuna, and you restrict Yamuna further into east, of course, when there is heavy rainfall, that area will get flooded. And there was this area just adjacent to it, opposite to Red Fort, just next to Red Fort, which in Delhi it's called Daryaganj. That area never gets flooded because it's on an elevated area. So if you see the way even the medieval period, the way the settlements were built, they were built in keeping in mind the hydraulic system, the hydraulic science. Everything was sort of interconnected. And with the Harappans and with the people who follow the Harappans also have used that. So when on the banks of Ghaggar, Harappan sites were deserted about 1,000 years later, when painted graveware users occupy the same zone, the river now has shrunk, has become much more shallow and has shrunk. So there the settlement pattern has changed. So in archaeology we do understand this, and there is always space given to the river to breathe, or natural ecosystem to breathe. When we encroach it, we have a problem. That is the second thing that we have done to cause this whole this discomfort that we are facing on a daily basis today. We don't have proper drainage systems, we have encroached rivers, we have built on the natural reserves, we have killed the natural reserves, we have kept nothing for the nature to take its course. So when nature needs to do it, of course it will take its course and it will flow. And also the landslides that we are seeing, the large number of landslides, they have increased over the years. It's also because we are blasting for tunnels and roads. Of course development cannot stop, but there are certain things which we can stop. We can at least let the rivers breathe, we can improve our drainage, we can use various methods, we can take lessons from history and help in doing so. Even the early historic the ancient kings have also restored ancient reservoirs and dams, and you have Junagadh, a reservoir which was repaired by various rulers of different dynasties. So that can be done to revive these tributaries and canals which we have now labeled as nalas. So that is something we should take from archaeology, and this is where I say archaeology is not irrelevant. We can read into these pages of history and we can learn a lot. And I think this today is a very important lesson. We should be using this, we should be learning it, and we should be taking a closer look to all of this. To read more about this in detail, you can read my column. The link will be in the description box below. And I've also written on various Harappan cities like Banavali, its sanitation process. I've written about other settlements as well. So you can check out the Print's website for more such interesting columns on archaeology and also videos on archaeology. Till next time, thank you so much for listening. If you like it, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow Print on various social media platform. Thank you.